Welcome to Leading While Female, the podcast for purpose-driven women who are not just balancing life, leadership, and legacy, but also owning every space they are called to lead in. I'm your host, Mayowa Ijisesan, tech executive, pastor, wife, mother, and woman on a mission to help you step boldly into your assignment. So take a breath, grab a notebook, and maybe a cup of something warm, and let's grow together. You're listening to Leading While Female. I have a surprise guest with us today. Why a surprise? Well, although this podcast speaks to women and speaks to leadership, female leadership, I have decided to bring male leaders on this show to get unique perspectives that will help women to lead better. I'm very excited about my guest today. His name is Ben Williams, and I'll let him introduce himself. Welcome, Ben.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, good to be here.
Do you mind telling our guests a little bit of what you do, about what you do, who you are, what you do?
Yeah. So Ben Williams, I'm a partner at a law firm in Chicago, and I specialize in mergers and acquisitions and business transactions generally.
How hard is that?
It can be a lot of work, but it's interesting.
Okay, so today we're going to be talking about fearless leadership, how to face failure and criticism head on. All right, let's start with your story. Have you ever faced a moment of failure or public criticism in your leadership journey? How did you respond?
I think earlier in my career, some of the criticism that I experienced was around being fearful of doing different things, working with different people. I was kind of in a shell, and different people, other partners had told me that I wasn't really like stepping out, because part of it was I didn't really want to go into a part of law that I didn't want to practice. I wasn't sure about it. So I was afraid of like branching out, working with other people. And also that was also a fear of being criticized. If you're working with more people have things to say about you. So kind of took that on and did something with it, which I'll get into later on. But that was probably something that was changed the direction of my journey early in my career.
Wow. So when we talk about fearless leadership, what does that mean to you? And is it truly possible to lead without fear?
I think as human beings, there's always going to be some kind of fear in everything you're doing, because there's a fear of failure, a fear of people thinking you're not good enough or you're not qualified enough to do what you're doing. So there always will be some kind of fear, just because we're human beings and that's what we're dealing with. But I think taking those fears and doing something with it separates people that are very successful compared to people that aren't, people that don't really grow because of fear of taking the next step or fear of failure.
Okay, so you're saying you never get to a point where you are not, there's nothing to be afraid of?
I don't think so. I don't think whatever level you're in, there's always going to be a fear. Even if you're the president, there's a fear of your decisions. Are they going to lead your country down the wrong path? If you're a CEO, are you going to make a decision that's going to make your company unprofitable? If you're a leader in a church organization, are you going to make decisions or say something that's going to negatively impact your congregation? So in everything we do, there's always something at the back of your mind, something on your shoulder that might hold you back. But I think, at least in my experience, I think it's important to recognize those fears and do something with it, overcome them, and not let them hold you back in making decisions for your journey, your path, and impacting the people that you need to impact in life.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. So for leaders, especially, why do you think failure feels so personal, especially for those in the spotlight?
I think, and I've experienced it as well. I think the biggest thing is people think a failure in their leadership or whatever they're doing reflects on them personally. You might be very successful in your interpersonal relationships with your spouse, your children, your friends, and then you have an issue or a failure in another aspect of your life. It doesn't really reflect on you personally. It's hard to like separate who you are from what you're doing sometimes. But the truth is, a failure in leadership on what you're doing doesn't really reflect on you personally because it's one compartment of your life. It doesn't reflect on all of who you are. So I think as human beings, we find it hard to separate one issue or one portion of failure with the rest of our lives, which is not always the case because you can be like I said, an A student in like your relationships with everybody, your business, everything you're doing, but one failing in leadership doesn't necessarily reflect on who you are. So I think as human beings, we have to keep working on separating what we're doing from actually who we are. Your persona doesn't really mean it is what you're doing. So that's an issue I've had in the past, and I think everybody deals with that sometimes.
I want to say, that's something that's easier said than done, right?
Yes.
How do you do that personally? What are some practical steps you do to be able to deal with that? Because even this morning, I was on a call, a highly technical call, where I felt that my own part was subpar. Like when I left that call, I dropped that call, got off that Google Meet call, and I'm like, oh my goodness, you should do better. Like it took a moment to separate, and I had to be able to come here and do this. I had to kind of keep going.
Readjust.
Yeah. So how do you deal with it?
I think the thing is you take, my sister always says something when I was growing up that there's an element of truth, and I'll get into this later, in everything you hear. Maybe not completely true, but the element of truth in things. So if you have criticism or there's a failing on something, I think you can take something out of it and like improve and make an adjustment and to become better. But recognizing that is just in this, because everybody has different parts of their lives, right? And things don't necessarily intermingle. So if you are, a leader at work, it doesn't really mean because something happened, because you were criticized or there's a failure, it doesn't mean that translates to leading at home. It's completely different. Like if you're leading your children or leading your home or a nonprofit, or you're doing something separate, it doesn't necessarily translate. Sometimes there might be elements that creep over into different parts of your life. So I think it's important to take things and kind of reflect on it. That does this make me better in other parts of my life, and then apply it. But if not, maybe it's just really in that realm that it applies. So take it, run with it, make an adjustment, fix it, and then move on.
Okay. So don't stop in other areas of your life because, you had a terrible day at work.
Yeah, because otherwise it can shut everything.
Everything else down.
Can shut your whole life down because of one thing. But again, human beings are very complex people. We have so many things going on. So not everything bleeds into each other, right? So one thing doesn't necessarily apply to another thing. So it shouldn't like stop you from progressing in all aspects of your life because one thing happened that wasn't necessarily positive.
Yeah. Wow. That's good. Yeah. Okay. Can you share a failure? Okay. This is a vulnerable moment now. Can you share a failure that, looking back, turned out to be foundational for your growth or direction?
Yeah, I think, so what I talked about earlier about it really happened at an inflection point in my career where I was either going to go down the path I'm on now, going to become a partner in a firm, or, do something else completely different, or maybe go work at a company, be a lawyer, in-house lawyer or something. And that criticism, and the advice I was getting, it was kind of tough because I was kind of happy doing what I was doing with people I was working with. I didn't really want to change, come out of my shell. Part of it was also being bold and like speaking up and like, advocating for myself, things that I really wasn't used to. I didn't grow up that way, basically. So I had to take that and then make a decision about what my career was going to look like, kind of take the bulls by the horn. And what I did was I made the adjustment where I had to come out of my shell and start working with a broader range of people, which means really exposing yourself to more people who will have more things to say about you, which was what I was afraid of. So plenty of that came. But with that came a lot of like guidance and a ton of different experiences. I was worried about, I wanted my career to go in a certain way. And kind of opening myself up created the opportunity to kind of get expertise in a lot of different things, which turned out to be very, very helpful and very significant for me, because it then exposed me to like all kinds of areas of law, which I shouldn't have been afraid of, because it made me a better lawyer, for one, gave me a ton of experience, and then kind of made me an expert in my field, but then knew enough about a ton of other different areas of law where today I can help people with almost anything. I kind of know where to direct them to, give them some basic information about different areas of law, so I can help more people and do more things, versus if I stayed where I was, which really was a very limiting path that I was on. So sometimes you think you know best, but and that's why I go back to what my sister said when I was growing up. She said, there's like an element of truth in every room. If somebody says something to you, if they criticize you, some criticism, maybe it's too much, maybe it's good, maybe it's bad, but in everything, you should sort of hear what the person is saying and take something out of it. Again, maybe it doesn't really apply. Maybe some of it is spot on, some of it is off base, but if you just take a bit of it and like kind of reflect on yourself, that is this true? Should I make an adjustment? It can push you in the right direction. And for me, that was great, because that was exactly what I needed to like advance to the next level, become a partner, but above all, like have the courage to like lead teams and kind of get out of my shell, speak up, and be confident in who I am. So it was tough when it happened, but I'm happy I did something with it, because I could have just like run into my shell and be like, okay, this law thing is not for me. But it really transformed who I was. So I'm kind of grateful.
And I'm grateful you did too. I'm very happy you did. And you know what you said, I feel it rings true for me too, as a leader, that when you hear things you don't like, not to just throw the baby out with the bathwater. Although sometimes it may be harsher than it needs to be, but to, kind of be reflective. Pause, think about it, not be so emotional about it, and try to, sift out the truth from it, because I think it's really helped me grow as a leader, right? As a person, as a leader, and maybe develop thicker skin too, right? Where I can hear truth and not be so, so afraid of hearing truth, right? However it may come.
Right. Yeah, because there might be something in there that really it can really be helpful to you if you just think about it, or maybe it's something you've known but you just didn't like
pay attention to
it.
You didn't want to.
You didn't want to. But I think it helps, and then it helps you like also mentor people, because you can tell them it's okay to be wrong, learn from it and do something, because as human beings we feel like we're always right, but it's not.
So here you're a partner now. Do you still see that to be true? Do you still find that to be true? Like hearing things that will help you develop and grow? Or are you done growing? I mean, you've grown a lot. Are you okay?
No, I don't think you could ever be done growing. There's always something you don't know, or something somebody else knows, something you can learn from. So I'm always open to like hearing from people and like listening, whether it's from clients, or other like older partners. So there's always something people say that you can, I mean, I'm not really in a role where it's like, I'm like evaluated, quote unquote, but in working with like other people and like clients, you learn things, and not really like criticism, but there's like bits of information people can give, even with like my team members, like juniors, like listening to them. I think it helps you grow. So I don't think the learning or the growing ever stops.
Yeah.
And I think it's good to always have an open mind and like just keep listening to try to grow. Because otherwise, like you might kind of stay where you are for the rest of your life if you're not willing to listen.
You'll be
and
comfortable,
adjust.
but you would have stagnated.
Yeah, and things are changing. Technology changes, so people have ideas. So if you're just sort of, oh no, I think I'm good. I know everything. You never really grow past where you are, and can miss out on a lot.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So, what practices or mindsets help you stay bold and focused in the face of pressure?
I think kind of what we talked about, so having an open mind, and again, not internalizing things when you're under pressure, not taking things personally, but kind of keeping calm. I think what I've always done under pressure is just try to keep calm, because in the face of chaos, if you fall apart, then it's kind of bad for everyone. So I think trying to keep calm and get as much information. I mean, for me, for leadership, when you're under pressure, like get all the information you need to make a decision. But I think it's important to be decisive and make a decision, as opposed to kind of just like flake out because there's like too much pressure. So it's just kind of, for me, it's keeping calm, learn what I need to learn, do what I need to do, and then move on to the next step, because pressure will always come and you have to like respond to it, as opposed to be in your shell or not do anything about it.
Yeah. So when you are under pressure, how do you balance the sometimes the demand placed on you to make a decision right there and then, with needing to have all the information you need to make the right decision? How do you balance it? The urgency of, okay, you have to make a decision now. And then how do you even know that I should make it now? I should defer it a bit. I need to learn a little bit more to be informed, to make an informed decision, or I can go ahead and just call it. Like, because I'm sure your profession comes with a lot of pressure, right?
Yeah, I think it depends on the situation. Sometimes you may have time to gather more information, ask questions, talk to people, but there are times when you don't. And I think in situations where you have to make decisions quickly, I think you use the best information you have and be decisive and make the decision. Kind of trust in who you are. If you are guided spiritually, then you have that to rely on as well. But where you have to make decisions quickly, you sort of have to trust that you have the experience and the training to make those decisions and be comfortable in your abilities to make a reasoned decision, using the information you have, and then just to run with it. So there are times you have time to like get more. There are times you have to decide quickly, and then you do. So I think if you're in a position where you have to make a decision quickly, for you to be the one making the decision tells me you probably have the experience to be in that point, at that point, right? So if you weren't, then you probably wouldn't be the one making the decision. So you should have some comfort that you have the experience, the training that's brought you to this point to be the decision maker, and kind of be comfortable with that. And obviously, you have the experience and you make a reasonable decision, not kind of a random or just random guessing, luck of the draw. So I think that's something a leader can rely on when they're in that kind of a position.
Yeah, that's a very good point you make, that maybe we need to have a little more confidence in our competence, that your competence got you to this point.
Exactly.
So yeah. Wow, that's powerful. Now, how do you walk your way back from a bad decision or wrong decision?
Well, sometimes that might be tough. But I think if you learn a decision is wrong, I don't think there's any shame in admitting you're wrong. I think people appreciate it when you do, versus if you try to like act like it was right or you knew everything.
Or it was someone else's fault.
Exactly. So taking responsibility, admitting you're wrong, and then above all, coming up with a corrective plan to correct if there was an error made, to fix it. there's almost no way you can go through this life making all perfect. I only know one man who made perfectly right decisions before he left this earth, Jesus Christ.
Jesus.
So other than that, I don't think there's anybody on earth that
Nobody
can
else.
make perfect decisions, whether it's leading in your organization, raising children, interpersonal relationships with people you know. There are going to be mistakes with your parents, with everybody. There's going to be issues. So it's just admitting that. And as you said, not trying to like cover it up or blame somebody else. Take responsibility and then come up with a plan. I think people appreciate that versus doing the opposite and not taking responsibility or not acting like you made a mistake, apologizing and then moving on. I found that to be very helpful with when dealing with people.
So acknowledge you made a mistake, own up to it, take responsibility, and then come up with a plan.
Because I mean, like in law, I've seen that not necessarily where we not like we make a mistake, but where the client wants to do something and you help them come up with a plan, it goes a long way versus you just kind of asking them, what should we do? Like kind of they're hiring you for a reason. So you come up with a plan. So I've kind of applied that in my life where whether it's at home or anything I'm doing is if we're in a situation, always come up with a plan, right? And vet your plan. And then you can ask questions, talk to your other co-leaders, people you're working with, and come up with a good plan. But the same thing applies where a mistake has been made. If you come up with a plan to rectify it, usually things can be rectified. There's almost nothing that's like the end of the world. But not doing anything about it and just like wringing your hands in a corner isn't going to do anything. Right? Just to like try to fix it.
Yeah. So we fight the temptation to shut down when we make mistakes. And it doesn't have, the plan you come up with does not have to be a perfect plan, right?
But at least it starts the process to get you to remediate whatever happened. And people might chip in, bring more ideas and improve upon the plan. But that's better than having no plan at all.
Yeah.
I think people really appreciate that when they see that you're actually actively trying to do something. If a mistake was made, owning up to it means to me helping repair any issues that might have come out of that.
Oh, wow. So good. Okay. So now you had to, confront your fears, fear of criticism, failure, and kind of develop out of that. How do you as a leader help others to do the same?
Yeah, I think kind of sharing my experience with people is very helpful. And in talking to people, you find that people have pretty much not the exact same experience, but something similar in their lives. So helping them recognize that you're a human being on this earth. These are going to be the types of experiences you have. But then again, not staying within your shell or getting angry. Some people might just quit a job because somebody said something, they didn't like their evaluation. And, we all tend to think, oh, we're perfect, but that's not the case. Somebody's going to find a flaw in something you do or how you approach things. So I think it's important to, like I said, take that and do something with it.
Yeah.
But helping people just realize that, this is the journey. There might be tougher situations, like you said, tougher criticisms you may not like, but again, developing a thick skin, but listening to what people are saying and help it use that to like become a better person, a better leader. Because like I said, there's always something somebody's going to say that's going to be helpful to you. So it's better to like take it and like run with it as opposed to like leave the job or get angry, withdraw into your shell, and you're not really improving as a person, right? So the workplace is a very good place to develop as a human
your character.
being. Yeah, because you're going to meet all kinds of people, some nice, some not so nice, some difficult to deal with. And people are going to say things about you, some true, some not true. But how do you respond? What do you do about it, right? It's going to be at every level, right? Even if you're the boss, people are going to be talking about you still, right? So
even if you don't know it, somebody's
constantly saying something. It's just the way it is. Sometimes I'm like, as I was developing my career, I always used to think, should I ask people, the more senior I get, should I ask the junior people what people are saying about me? And I was like, I probably don't. I've heard of they could be like, this guy might be mean, or he's this or he's that. So some of it might come to you, but you develop the thick skin and then you use it to improve yourself. Just do a course correction because each version is going to be better, right?
Yeah.
You start from version 1.0. By the time you're at the top, you're version 10. You've heard everything, you've gleaned from it, you've improved yourself. Then you're ready to be a leader because you've kind of cleaned yourself up over the years.
Wow, that's beautiful. So, do you find that helping somebody else develop in their leadership, either through the stories you share, being vulnerable with them, being authentic in your leadership, do you find that it does something? Does it do anything to your own leadership
It
as
does.
well?
It does because I find that in mentoring and developing other people, I mean, their experiences provide something that you can also learn from, right? Things they've heard that you're talking to them about, whether you're the one that provided the feedback or somebody provided feedback to them. I think you can internalize it and kind of reflect on whether that's something you can use to improve yourself, right? Well, like when I give our associates evaluations, sometimes I think about what they're doing and I'm like, okay, have I been doing this with a client? Let me improve. Let me improve on that. So I think it helps you, and then kind of just talking through with the person, different ideas are shared. So I don't think it's a one-way street where you're helping somebody improve, but it doesn't reflect. I mean, you don't take advantage of it. I think you can take advantage of it because you hear what they're saying, and then you hear what you're saying as well, and you improve on it. So I think that kind of a mentoring relationship or providing feedback can definitely improve you as a leader for sure.
Now, being somebody who used to be in their shell and who felt more comfortable that way, how did you begin to unlock the value in mentoring others? Because I'm imagining it wasn't very comfortable at the beginning. So you're talking about something that's besides the work you do. Or is it embedded in the work you do? Does your mentoring, is mentoring a part of your job description, or is it something you choose to do outside of your regular, day job? And if that's the case, how was it coming out of that shell to be able to do that?
Yeah, I think it's been both, like outside of the workplace, informally, just relationships with people. We use the opportunity to have mentees over the years, and then in the workplace, it hasn't really been formally part of the job description, but there's been the opportunity to like mentor, like younger associates, for instance. So I've done that over the years, and then right now I'm also like the chair of our summer associate program, which is where kind of our intake program to get in new lawyers to join the firm. So it hasn't been required, but I've done it because one, I think like I was saying, you learn more when you help other people grow because you learn about their experiences, and then it makes you better in developing people, like the ideas you have, what's happening, and then the more you do it, the more experiences you have. It's almost like you learn what's like current and like development, like self development for people. So I think I've kind of done that because it's helped me personally as well, and then obviously help people in their own careers, and then a lot of it also it's been very useful to talk about like my experiences because other people I've seen have wanted to sort of take my position when I started, where it's just, if you're working in this particular line with this particular people and things are going well, it's very tempting to like stay there, right? But it's incumbent on you to kind of step out of your comfort zone. And I push people to do that. That I know you have a great relationship with me or somebody else you're working with, but go work with this person. And again, it really helped me because one of the toughest people I work with when I was coming up, before I became a partner, turned out to be probably the person I learned the most from in my career. He was a very tough boss, gave feedback on the spot, and like he was raw, but he really, I mean, if you like listen to what he was saying, you'd be like, yeah, I shouldn't have done that. I was, what was I thinking? But, um, he had a ton of experience. He's been doing this for a long time. Great business generator, but listening to him and like growing, I'm happy I did that because many people I've seen over the years would just be like, I can't work with this guy. I'm done. I'm leaving. But I'm happy I stuck through it because of that original criticism I received earlier on, where somebody told me, come outside of your comfort zone and like go and deal with other people. So he really like grew me because he taught me a ton. He was in my area of practice, so it was very helpful to like learn from him, how the business is done, how understanding things around the law, how to treat clients, how to manage different types of things. So he was probably the toughest person I've ever worked with, but he was the person I learned from the most. And he turned out to be like a great advocate for me at the end of the day. So I remember there was a point many years ago where I was like, I think I'm like done with this guy. I think I'm just going to like leave and like go find something else. But I'm happy I stayed on. And that brings me to another point. Another thing I think about, I tell my kids and my wife all the time that you should never let one person like define your trajectory, right? If you have a tough boss, right, or somebody else you're dealing with and you don't like the person's hard on you, you shouldn't necessarily leave the company because of that person, because what that tells me is that person you're going down this path. The person has shifted your trajectory. Like, why should one person shift your trajectory? If you're sure this is where you're supposed to be and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, there should not be one person powerful enough to like shoot you off course, right? Eventually you're going to get through it and move on. But if you don't and you move on, you decide to move on yourself, then you start another path, which maybe you're not really supposed to be on, right? And you've missed out on something. So if I had left, I would have missed out significantly on a lot of good things that happened to me down the road. And then a lot of the experiences that I've learned from him, just because I was like, I couldn't handle it and I couldn't take it. So I think as human beings, we have to think about that and be careful about letting one experience or one person define what your story is going to be. If that shouldn't be the case, sometimes you just have to have a thick skin, get through it, and then on the other side, see what's waiting for you, as opposed to like try to like create another path for yourself,
And then you'll meet somebody else like that on that new path.
Exactly. Are you going to keep like jumping and keep...
And sadly enough, some people do and end up with a life they never wanted, a career they never wanted. And they are wondering how to just retrace their steps.
Yeah.
I think this is so a powerful thing for people who are just starting out in their careers to realize. I remember my first job, I had one of those bosses too. But I remember the first assignment he gave me, right? It was a really technical assignment. And here I was fresh from school. He had me do this thing. I came back, told him I was done. And he said, okay, is it accurate? I said, I tried my best. He gave me a look like, he said, go and do it again. At that time, I didn't realize that trying your best on that particular type of project was not good enough. You had to be precise, right? But when he said that, I felt I'm like, this guy's been so unreasonable. After spending so many hours, why is my best not, just give me a B grade and let me be.
Let me move on.
No, it's like, no, it's either an A or not on this type of project, And we will encounter people like that. And it's a blessing to encounter people like that because, they shape us, they help us be better, they help us go through the uncomfortable moments that make us grow. And I think, thank you for sharing that. Okay. This another question for somebody about somebody else. What would you say to someone who is playing small because they're afraid to be criticized or make mistakes? Apart from all you've already shared, what would you say to that person?
Yeah, I think that probably happens a lot. Like people, they don't want to venture out because of fear of, part of it is like the confidence in your competence. And kind of doing things, and I've seen that even before I was in law and I was in consulting. I would see people that were eligible and qualified to be a manager saying, no, I don't want to be a manager because yes, I get paid more, but then I get more headache with employees I have to manage and more issues. So people limit themselves because they don't want to deal with more, even though they're at the point where they can be. So I think, we have to set aside our fears, grow from it, and have confidence that we have the experience and the knowledge to do what we need to do and get out there. Because I think if I forget what the saying is about the graveyard being full of, untapped talents and potential and dreams. If you don't really explore and really put yourself out there and tap yourself to the fullest, then the world doesn't experience all your abilities and your potential just because you're concerned about criticism or failure. I think you need to expect to fail at some point. It's not always going to be perfect, but it'll make you a better person, especially if you're open and willing to learn from what the issues are, the failures, the criticisms are. So it'll make you better. So you'll have confidence that when you get out of the small space you're in and you go to the next space, you become better, and then on to the next space and so on. So it keeps becoming better. So I would encourage people to just step out of the zone. When you have an opportunity, take it. Don't be afraid of the responsibility that comes with, because again, it's not going to kill you to make a mistake. It's not going to be the end of the world, right? It's not surgery. You're not killing anybody, right? It's just work. So you do it and you move on. But you certainly don't want to restrict yourself like I did, where I was just happy in my little office and my shell. I was doing what I wanted to do. Things were going well, and I didn't want to step out. That would have been a travesty if I stayed where I was, because it would have been very limiting where I was. I would have gone somewhere else. I wouldn't have experienced all what I'm experiencing now, or gained all what I would have gained now. So you really want to try to take advantage of opportunities as they come, and don't be afraid. Again, if failure comes, you just learn from it and improve and keep moving on.
Now, is it ever too late? If somebody has stayed that way for so long, is there ever a time where it's it's too late? You've missed too many opportunities,
No, I don't think so. I think opportunities keep coming, right? If you're paying attention and you're open to them, they'll keep coming. It might feel like it's too late sometimes. I might have missed one, but there are going to be many others. Even if you're 70, 80, it's going to keep coming. So taking advantage of them. And once you realize you're at the point where I've kind of held myself back, let me actually now step into this thing and keep doing it, they'll keep coming. And then they kind of pile on each other. When one comes, it usually opens the door for something else. That's usually just how it works. And then you do that, and then you keep moving, and then you keep growing. But you should never feel like it's too late, because there's tons of stories of people that did things when they were much older, and they continue to succeed. Yeah.
Just the other day, I think it was 2 weeks ago, I was at a program where a woman had just gone back for a PhD at 75. Wow. Oh my God. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's never too late.
Yeah. She was part of this mentorship program, and she was graduating from the mentorship program. And then she said that one of the things that she was motivated to go and do while she was going through that program was apply for the PhD. And at 74. Wow. It was amazing.
That's amazing. Encouraging.
So it's been a great conversation with you. Thank you so much for all you've shared. I'll give you a sentence, and I want you to finish it. All right? So finish the sentence. Fearless leadership is dash.
Fearless leadership is leading without the fear of failure.
Wow. That's a good one. Fearless leadership is leading without the fear of failure. Wow. That's facing it head on.
Facing it head on.
Yeah. What am I afraid of? Well, that I'm going to fear. Well, or that I'm going to fail. Okay. I'll do it anyway.
I'll do it anyway. And it turns out you may not even fail at the end of the day.
And if you do, you won't die.
Yeah. You learn from it and grow.
And grow.
Keep moving on.
Wow. Okay. What's one thing every leader watching this needs to hear about courage and criticism?
Yeah, I think they go together. I think you have to have courage to handle criticism. I think the key phrase is do something with it. Take the criticism, learn from it. Don't be afraid. Don't think it reflects on you personally. It's just part of your journey. Take it, learn from it, grow, and then go to the next level and just keep doing that.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ben, for being with
Thank you.
me today. It's been an amazing conversation. I've learned a lot. I've enjoyed
Too.
this. And I'm sure that you have as well. Well, there you have it, folks. Ben Williams has been with us on this episode of Leading While Female. I hope you've learned a lot. Remember that fearless leadership is leading without the fear of failure. Until next time, I'm Mayowa Ijisesan, your host on this show. Bye bye.